we were discussing was we were talking about gymnosperms, right? And some of the basic, just the starting point. Discuss gymnosperms. Today we are going to continue that group of that group of plants that is called as gymnosperms. From the last class, whenever we talk about gymnosperms, the first word that comes to our mind is naked seeded plants. No, এইবিলাক plant group by A2 group of plants, obviously they belong to phanerogams, cryptogams. They belong to phanerogams, right? Cryptogams bilak nohoy. Phanerogams mane those plants that has flowers or flower-like structures, those are called phanerogams. So gymnosperms belong to ki phanerogams. Next, tahator seed thakibo ne nathake, obviously they will have seed, and so they belong to the group called as spermatophyta or spermatophytes boli koy tahator seeds ase. Talking about seeds, seeds will have covered seed, naked seed. Gymnosperms are hodai naked seed thake. Why is it naked? Because ovule gets transformed into a seed, but that ovary section, no, ovule of june cover kori thake. Hey, ovary to not well developed in case of gymnosperms, and so the seeds remain exposed. Covering right. Some of the points that we have talked about. Next, talking about the plant body, that was a sporophyte. Sporophyte boli kole remember the ploidy of the plant body. Ki hobo twice. Sporophytic plant or cell or ploidy kiman hobo twice. Second is whenever we are talking about it as a sporophyte, that ki thakibo distinct stem leaves and roots thakibo. Last class at the entire topic of discussion on this group is mainly focused on two examples, that is Cycas and Pinus. I mean, Cycas Pinus, tare comparative study eta kori goi asu. Right, talking about stems, roots, right? Cycas or roots or Pinus or roots. I think you remember we have talked about symbiotic association in the two groups. That is important. When we were discussing about the stem, again, cycas or key stem, branch, unbranched, pinus or key stem, branch, unbranched, those were the points of interest, right? Talking about leaves, in case of gymnosperms, we have said that there tinta type of leaves dekha pao, foliage leaves dekha pao, or foliar but normal leaves dekha pao, little like leaves dekha pao, or scale leaves dekha pao. Right, scale leaves bilak khali at a point key important that they are non-photosynthetic. If they are non-photosynthetic, then obviously green color to no hoy, so they are brown in color. So up till there we have discussed, right? Adi, please take out the PDF and then we'll start from there. So each and every point that is written in this PDF is important from examination point of view. Okay, particular point is important. Tothapi, likhisa jodi to khube bhal, you can just mark it down. For those students who could not get the time to write it down, ekon extra copy lod le just in a point to likhi thoba that this point is important, but kiba eta mark kori thoiba. Okay. The first line of the PDF, majority of the gymnosperms are perennial woody plants. Perennial, do we understand? Annual, biennial, perennial. Ever words sunisune?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right? So if they have a lifespan of more than 2 years, then those plants are called as perennial. So gymnosperms are perennial. Next point, tallest gymnosperm. Bahut question ahe, sikiwa, you need to remember. Gymnosperms generally they are woody plants, right? But they are tall plants. But we have an example of a shrub also, that is ephedra. Next, climber na lage. Woody climber. You have to remember the word woody climber, that is nitam. Ebilak points, examination point of view per question ahead. Next, in gymnosperms, embryo and seed formation takes place and no food formation is observed. No food formation, actually, Junior Likhi said it's not a very proper line. In gymnosperms, embryo and seed formation is seen. Itu to ami jani seeds to obviously ase, embryo to ase, embryo formation ho gose. No food formation is observed. Mean ki korise je ovary to bhalke develop na hoy, right? He kind of ki hoy seeds bilak naked hoy. Next, they have limited distribution. In the last class, what we have said is, at a line question, you remember, this group of plant is considered as the smallest or the smallest group in the plant kingdom. No, jiman bur ase algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, jiman ase. So what's the smallest group ki gymnosperms? And what is the reason for being smallest? Kibato reason thakibo, right? So some of the reason they have limited distribution. I think I have explained this point before. Junbilak plants widely spread hoy, but প্ৰত্যেকটো প্ৰায় বহুত habitats পোৱা যায়, not confined to a particular environmental conditions. সেইবিলাক কি হয় widespread হয় and they are considered as a large group, right? কিন্তু in case of gymnosperms, এটা specific necessity আছে, এটা environmental conditions এটা requirement আছে. So যিহেতু তাহাঁতৰ specific requirements আছে, সেইকাৰণে তাহাঁতৰ distribution to limited. এটা particular জেগাতে এটা particular environmental conditions হে grow কৰিব পাৰিব. So this is the meaning of the word called as they have limited distribution. Gymnosperms are xerophytes. Xerophytic plants, last class we have explained, those plants that grow in less water conditions. তেতিয়া তাক আমি কি বুলি কম? Xerophytes. I think you remember we have talked about sunken stomata in the last class. Right? Xerophytes বিলাকৰ কিছুমান adaptations থাকে to check the rate of transpiration, and one adaptation is the presence of sunken stomata. Last class of কৰিছো. Gymnosperms are vascular plants. Obviously, gymnosperms onwards, vascular plant or vascular system has started developing. So, gymnosperms বিলাকতো xylem and phloem থাকিব, but as like pteridophytes, ইহঁতৰো কি হ'ব যে out of the 4 cells of xylem, 1 cell would be absent, and out of the 4 cells of phloem, 1 cell would be absent. Xylem or কি নাথাকে, vessels would be absent, and in case of phloem, companion cells would be absent. Exactly the same that we have seen in case of pteridophytes. Vessels obviously নাই, তাত xylem phloem নাই, bryophytes আটো নাই, pteridophytes of vessels নাই, gymnosperms of vessels নাই. So vessels ক'ত থাকিব? Vessels are characteristic purely of angiosperms. আৰু some exceptions of gymnosperms বা higher gymnosperms আমি vessels দেখা পাম. ইয়াতে তলত exception দেখিছে, exceptions কি দিছে? Nitum, ephedra and welwitschia. These are the 3 examples of gymnosperms where you will see the presence of 2 vessels. Rest of the gymnosperms, 2 vessels nathake. So, secondary growth takes place in the gymnosperm stems. So, the stems are fully. What is secondary growth? Primary adult primary growth or secondary growth? I think in one of the discussion, maybe in pteridophyte section, when we were discussing about cambium. Did we say?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So what do you remember? Details, so obviously in plant anatomy we are going to do. Secondary growth details আমি start করি. As of now, all the plants that shows secondary growth, obviously they will have increase or they will have a great thickness. Adult plant, if they want to increase their thickness or girth, they have to undergo secondary growth. Secondary growth মানে nothing but some accumulation of certain types of tissues. Tissues accumulate কেনেকে কৰিব? কোনোবা এটা তাতে থাকা tissue divide কৰিব লাগিব so that it increases the number, and as a result the girth of the plant increases. So as of now, secondary growth to explanation, this is more than enough. Right? So যোনবিলাক plants are secondary growth থাকে সেইবিলাকৰ তাহাঁতৰ main trunk ডাল, it is very thick, thick বুলি নকওঁ, it's very big. Right? As compared to monocots like coconut hawk, rice hawk, wheat hawk, এইবিলাক plants কেতিয়াও কি হয়, increase নকৰে. কিন্তু plants like gymnosperms hawk, certain types of angiosperms hawk, angiosperms especially in case of dicots, তাহাঁতৰ কি হয়, তাহাঁতৰ girth as the time passes by, it keeps on increasing. This is what is called as secondary growth. Gymnosperms of secondary growth দেখা পাও নে নাপাও? It's same. Then we have certain points about the life cycle of gymnosperms. The plant body is a sporophyte, already explained. Next point is important. All gymnosperms are dioecious except Pinus. We are talking about the pine tree, except Pinus, that is monoecious. So question is, Pinus is a monoecious plant, no, it's a dioecious plant. But jikunu eta example di dibo, Cycas is a monoecious plant, no, dioecious plant. So you need to understand the meaning of monoecious and dioecious. Monoecious, dioecious, agote ami পঢ়িছো niki, intersexual and bisexual. Dioecious, monoecious, meaning kita buji pao ne na pao?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
One plant having both the sex organs would be called as a monoecious plant, right? Male organ, female organ, beta sex, that is called as monoecious. And if you have the male plant different than the female plant different, that is called as a dioecious plant, right? So maximum cycles maximum gymnosperms they would be dioecious except Pinus. Underline that point, that is important. Next, all gymnosperms are heterosporous. We understand the word heterosporous now. Homosporous, heterosporous, starting from Bryophytes, no? We are talking about these two words, homosporous, spores kole, homosporous by heterosporous. What we remember from the previous explanation, Bryophytes ot ami kenuka dhoroner spores dekhisilu, only homosporous. In case of pteridophytes ami ki dekha paisilu, both homosporous and heterosporous. In case of gymnosperms ami ki dekha pao, only heterosporous. At the time of reproduction, two types, obviously heterosporous যদি হয় তেতিয়াহলে কি ফর্ম করব, microspores, the smaller spores, and bigger spores that would be called as megaspores. Spores বুলি কলে spores বিলাকে germinate কৰি পেলাই কি produce কৰে, এটা spore যেটা germinate কৰি পেলাই কি produce কৰে,
Male and female.
or to put the question, very good, or to put the question in a proper way, spore is considered as the first cell of dash generation. এই লাইনটো বহুতবাৰ ৰিপিট কৰিছো আমি।
Gametophytic generation.
Very good. It is considered as the first cell of gametophytic generation. So what we understand, spore এটা germinate কৰি পেলাই সদায় gametophyte produce কৰিব। So if you are talking about microspores or male spores, no, তাতে কি form কৰিব? Male gametophyte. If you are talking about the larger spores, that is megaspores, they will form the female gametophyte. Next, there are two types of spores, and these spores are found in different sporangia. What is the sporangia? Spores bilak jo thake, the house of the spore is called as sporangia. Male sporangia, or you have the microsporangia, you have the megasporangia. Microsporangia bitor ki thikbo microspores, megasporangia bitor ki thikbo megaspores. Now another point is, if you are talking about spores, spores bilak kot thake, sporangia bitor thake. Sporangia kune form kore? Which part of the plant body forms the sporangia? কি বস্তু accumulate হৈ পেলাই sporangia form কৰে? Or another way around, sporangia is made of, it is made of sporophylls. Remember, we have drawn a diagram of Selagina. Pteridophytes যেতিয়া discuss কৰি আছিলো তেতিয়া কোনৰ নিচিনা এটা structure আঁকিছিলো ন Selagina, if you remember, এনেকুৱা এটা diagram আঁকিছিলো ন Selagina, right? And here what we have drawn, cone, no? A cone like structure to, আৰু এই leaves বিলাকক আমি কি কৈছিলো, sporophyll, right? So ইয়াতে আকৌ we are talking about that word swap. In case of gymnosperms also, we see the structure that is called as cone or strobili. Cone or strobili, gymnosperms. In certain types of pteridophytes also, we see cone or strobili, right? When we are talking about a cone to structure can you almost something like this. বেলেগ কোন যদি একো দেখা নাই, at least পাইনৰ কোনটো দেখিছা চাগে, the cone of pine, right? So it is something like this. This cone is made up of, এইবিলাক কি হয়, leaf like structures, এইবিলাক কি বুলি কয়, sporophyll, right? And when we are talking about the sporophyll, fill মানে কি, fill মানে leaf, and spore indicates what, the leaf that bear the spores is called as sporophyll. So ultimately আমি কি কৈ আছো, the gymnosperms of আমি spores দেখা পাওঁ, that is heterospores, microspores and megaspores. Spores বিলাক ক'ত থাকিব, sporangia ভিতৰত থাকিব, sporangia বিলাক ক'ত থাকিব, sporophyllত থাকিব, right? Talking about this as a sporophyll, sporangia to ক'ত থাকিব. So this would be a sporophyll, right? This would be a sporangium, and these are spores. এই তিনটা word clear হৈছে? Other three words clear?
Yes.
And ultimately, a structure too, it's a what? Accumulation of these, right? A sporophyll that এনেকে গোট খাই পেলাই এটা structure form কৰিব, that is called as a cone. Next, there are two types of spores that are formed in different sporangia. Microspores are found in microsporangia, megaspores are found in megasporangia. You have a line next to that. Hey, line is important. Integumented megasporangium is called ovule. Gymnosperms, আমি ovule word to use কৰিম. Prior to gymnosperms, no? Pteridophytes are I mean megaspores, microspores, megasporangium, microsporangium. These are the structures that we have discussed, but we have not discussed the word called as ovule. From gymnosperms onwards, gymnosperms are angiosperms. I mean, ki dekha pam, ovule dekha pam. Now, what is the ovule? A megasporangium with covering is called as ovule. So, eta megasporangium thakibo, megasporangium to jodi covering thake, ekon covering ba dukhon covering, whatever it might be. So, this is the megasporangium. These two are the covering. Ar jetia eta megasporangium or covering thake, jetia hole this structure would be called as ki ovule. Is the point clear? And a covering jikono naam ki? Gymnosperms of megasporangium form, microsporangium form. The megasporangium, we see the megasporangium having a covering. That covering is called as integument. Whenever a megasporangium is covered, that structure is called as a ovule. In case of gymnosperms, ovule will see, in case of angiosperms also will see the ovule. One basic difference between the two structures is, in case of gymnosperms, tahator integuments matro ekhon thakibo ba covering matro etu jodi megasporangium hoy, megasporangium or matro ekhon covering thakibo. Kintu in case of angiosperms, megasporangium would have two coverings. So dukhon integuments characteristic of angiosperms. Presence of one integument is a characteristic of gymnosperms. Next. Both is
Ma'am, covering কিখনকে integument বুলি কোৱা হয় নেকি?
কেইখনত?
Ma'am, covering খনকে ma'am.
Covering খনত integuments বুলি কোৱা হয়. Actually, ovular structure to details of our angiosperm portion of ase. Gymnosperms ami ovular structure to development to iman details of dia nai, right? Okoman dise, so that ovule part okoman confusing hobo. You know, once we do the angiosperms, right, at that time it will become more clear. And this part is included in your second year course and not in your first year. Angiosperm ovule to kenikwa development to kenikwa ei bostu kini maximum between second year lesson ase. As now we'll stay with the basic idea about the ovule. So what is the ovule? A megasporangium with covering. What is the name of the covering? The name of the covering is called as integuments. In case of angiosperms, how many integuments are present in the ovule? Two integuments. Ekhane ami tak ki use koru bitegmic. And in case of gymnosperms, আমি এটা word use কৰো that is called as unitegmic. তাৰমানে অকল এখন integument আছে. Right? Next, as far as the development is concerned, no, next page এখন chart দিয়া আছে, so we'll study from the chart. Please go to the next page. Meiosis takes place in the microsporangium. This is something that we'll read it from the chart. Below that line, আৰু এটা point আছে that is important. Germination of spores. Spores present in gymnosperms obviously present. The spores will germinate. Germinate hole like ki form koribo gametophyte. Now when we are talking about germination of spores, duta type of germination we have read: endosporic germination and exosporic germination. What is the meaning? This spore to spore germinate koribo. Will it germinate while being attached to the parent body? No, it will germinate getting detached from the parent body. যদি detach হৈ পেলাই মাটিত germinate কৰে বা বেলেগ জেগাত germinate কৰে, that is called as exosporic. যদি mother plant থাকি পেলাই germinate কৰে, that is called as endosporic. Endosporic development is the root cause for, it's the root cause for seed formation. So এটা spore যদি endosporic develop কৰে বা endosporic germinate কৰে, তেতিয়াহে seed form কৰিব. And I think we have talked about this in case of pteridophytes also. So যেতিয়া এই নোটটো লিখি যাবা নহয় সাইডত ইয়াত যেনেকে লিখা আছে ন germination of spore is endosporic. So bracketত লিখিবা, you have to remember a point from the pteridophytes. What is the point that you need to remember? The pteridophytes of spore germination কেনেকুৱা আছিলে? In most of the cases it was exosporic. Remember the word called as prothallus. Pteridophytes of prothallus word to মনত আছে নাই?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So prothallus কি আছিলে? Nothing but the gametophyte. What form কৰিছিলে? Matit form কৰিছিলে. Right? So in maximum of the pteridophytes, it was exosporic. But we have said, or we have discussed 2 examples of pteridophytes that shows endosporic germination, and that is the result, or that is supposed to be the precursor of seed habit. Ekhini ami pteridophytes discuss korisu. Now, do you remember those 2 examples of pteridophytes? Precursor of seed habit buli kole kundal plant e dekha pai dekhoy. The first starting of seed habit kune dekhaisile? 2 examples of pteridophyte, that was Selaginella and Sylvinia. So side out now kobat likhi thoi diba. Pteridophytes buli Selaginella, Sylvinia, dash edal di endosporic germination. Rest of the pteridophytes exosporic germination. Alright, compare kori pohibo lagibo. Okay, so that point is important. Next we come to the chart. That duta sporophyte buli likha ase tar uporot, so that you all don't get confused. Eta bostu likhi lo ason. जो चार्ट আছে হা চার্টখন এনেকে আৰম্ভ কৰিবা জিমনোস্পাৰ্মছ বুলি কৰিবা এনেকে দুডাল এৰোহেড দিবা ইয়াতে স্পোৰোফাইট অলৰেডি লিখাই আছে স্পোৰোফাইট ইয়াত লিখা আছে আৰু এটা স্পোৰোফাইট লিখা আছে ন so দুটা স্পোৰোফাইট কিয় লিখা আছে because we know gymnosperms majority of the gymnosperms are dioecious. And when we are talking about dioecious, obviously male plant beleg hobo, female plant beleg hobo. That is the reason why we are writing here sporophyte. We are talking about this as a male sporophyte and this as a female sporophyte. Is the point clear? A point of okay. So if you are talking about the male sporophyte of ki thakibo? Male kon thakibo? So some chart kon clear hoise na nai. So this sporophyte will have the male cone, right? Yate ki thakibo? Female cone thakibo. Male cone is made up of ki? Microsporophyll. This is made up of megasporophyll. Is the point clear? Microsporophyll, male cone, right? Next, microsporophyll ki thakibo? Microsporangia thakibo. Megasporophyll ki thakibo? Megasporangium. Inside the microsporangium, what you will see? Microspores. Inside the megasporangium, what you will see? Megaspores. Microspores germinate kori pelai ki form koribo? The male gametophyte, right? Megaspore germinate kori pelai ki form koribo? Female gametophyte. Ekhini loke chart kon clear hoise ne nai? The chart that is given in your PDF. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what is important? In case of gymnosperms, right? Ekhini loke swa. Sporophyte, microsporangia, microspores, ebilak words ami pteridophytes to paisilu, right? And again in gymnosperms we are discussing. So up till here we understand. Here is not another point important. What is important? Microspores would germinate into the male gametophyte. In gymnosperms, the male gametophyte is also called as male gametophyte or male gametophyte mane ki? Jot male gametes thake tak ami male gametophyte buli kom, right? That house where you will find the male gametes. So male gametophyte in case of gymnosperms is also called as ki buli koy? So tat likha ase chart khonot swa male gametophyte, yeah, male gametophyte oblique ki likha ase? Pollen grains, right? A pollen grain word too we'll start discussing from gymnosperms and then we'll continue till angiosperms. Angiosperms bilakoro flowers bilakor ki thake? Pollen grains thake, anther thake, anther bhitorot ki thake? Pollen grains thake. Eta pollen grain or bhitorot ki thake? Male gamete thake, right? So male gamete bostutok ami ki boli kom? Male gametophyte. So what is the male gametophyte? The male gametophyte is nothing but the pollen grain. Is the point clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So keteba question ahe pollen grain or aru eta naam ki? What is the other name? It is also called as the male gametophyte. So that point is important. So inside the pollen grain, what you will see are the male gametes. যেহেতু fertilization হব লাগিব, sexual reproduction হব লাগিব, then obviously you should have a male gamete and you should have a female gamete. So we are reading as to where will you find the male gamete and where will you find the female gamete. So this point is important. Microspore onwards, তলৰ point খিনি ভালকে পঢ়িবা. Microspores এ কি form কৰিব? Male gametophyte. Male gametophyte is also called as the pollen grain. Inside the pollen grain, what you will see? The presence of the male gamete. Next, come to this section. In this section, we have talked about megaspores, right? Megaspores are germinate kori pelai ki form koribo? Ki form koribo? Female gametophyte. So this point is again important. So tate important boli likhi thoi diba. In case of gymnosperms, the female gametophyte is also called as কি বুলি কৈছে ব্র্যাকেটত কি স্ল্যাশ টি কি লিখা আছে সসন
endosperm.
Very important, right? Why is it important? কারণ endosperm formation, please listen to it carefully. Endosperm formation is a characteristic of only angiosperms. Actually, আমি চাবলৈ গলে proper যেনেকে endosperm form কৰে ন, angiosperms ত আমি endosperm দেখা পাওঁ. And that endosperm is a result of double fertilization in case of angiosperm. So angiosperm group টোত কি হয় fertilization দুবাৰ হয় আৰু দুবাৰ হোৱাৰ কাৰণে এটা fertilizationৰ কাৰণে zygote form কৰিব, zygote embryo form কৰিব, and that line will go, and the second fertilization কি হয় যে তাৰ কাৰণে endosperm form কৰে. So what is endosperm বুলি সুধিলে, it is the result of double fertilization. Double fertilization ক'ত হয়? It is the characteristic of only angiosperms. So এনেকুৱা লাগে যে endosperm অকল angiosperms হতে পায়, but this statement is false. Why it is false? Because we see endosperm formation in case of gymnosperms also. কিন্তু দুইটাতে অকমান difference আছে. Difference to কি? In case of gymnosperms, the endosperm is formed before fertilization. In case of angiosperms, the endosperm is formed after fertilization. Is the point clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Next, another point of difference is, আমি যোনটো angiosperms of endosperm পাওঁ, the quality of that endosperm, no? Angiosperms of যোনটো endosperm পাওঁ, সেই endosperm of ploidy কিমান? Trisend. Trisend কেনেকে হ'ল? When we'll discuss that process, then we'll understand. As of now, just remember this. In case of angiosperm, endosperm আছে, endosperm of ploidy kiman? Trisend. In case of gymnosperms also, you see endosperm formation. Endosperm is nothing but the female gametophyte. What is the ploidy of the endosperm in gymnosperms?
N.
It is N. Why it is N? Because we are talking about this word. Gametophyte বুলি কলে সদায় কি হয়? N. Sporophyte কলে কি হয়? Twice N. So question যেতিয়া আহে, endosperm formation আমি ক'ত দেখা পাওঁ? Endosperm formation আমি gymnosperms টো দেখা পাওঁ, angiosperms টো দেখা পাওঁ, কিন্তু in one case it is from before fertilization, in the other case it is from after fertilization. Next. So in case of gymnosperms, let's come back to this. So megaspores asile, megaspores bilake ki form koribo? Female gametophyte or endosperm form koribo. This endosperm, so megaspore eta cell. A cell to ultimately a group of cells form koribo, right? Division hoy hoy. A group of cells ok ami ki boli koiso? Endosperm boli koiso. In this group of cells, what you will see? The sex organ. Who sex organ? Obviously, the female sex organ. So endosperm বা female gametophyte আমি কি দেখা পাম? Female sex organ টোৰ নাম কি আছিলে? Answer? Yeah, it is called as Archegonia or Archegonia. So Archegonia ক'ত দেখা পাবা? female gametophyte. Archegonia structure কেনেকুৱা আছিলে? Something like this we have discussed during pteridophytes and bryophytes, right? Inside the Archegonia, what you will see? Egg. The egg is nothing but the female gamete. হয় নে নহয়? Is this point clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Etya. Just listen. In case of plants, especially from bryophytes onwards, no, আমি যেতিয়া plant body কথা কৈছো বা gametophytes, sporophytes এইবিলাক words use কৰিছো, and we are talking about sexual reproduction, আমি কি কৈছো যে gamete দুটা লাগে, male gamete, female gamete. Male gamete ক'ত থাকিব? Male sex organ, female gamete ক'ত থাকিব? Female sex organ. What is the male sex organ called as? It is called as enteridium.
Enteridium.
What is the female? Yeah. What is the female sex organ called as? It is called as archegonium. Enteridium and archegonium, both the structures are seen in bryophytes. Both the structure are seen in pteridophytes. But is it seen in gymnosperms? Sex organ duta আমি gymnosperms দেখা পাম নে নাপাম? কোন দুটা sex organ? Enteridium or archegonium? What would be the answer?
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, the male sex organ is not present, I think.
Why should you think? Chart
Yes,
cannot
ma'am.
just look at, right? If you see the chart properly, we have nowhere written the word enteridium. আমি directly কি লিখিছো যে microspores আছে, microspores কি form কৰিছে? Male gametophyte, that is also called as the pollen grain, and inside the pollen grain you see the male gamete, right? তাতে কোনো জেগাত আমি enteridium mention কৰা নাই. So this is a very important point. What is important? Gymnosperms are enteridium absent. What is present? Only archegonium present. If you remember in the first class when we were discussing plant kingdom, no, আমি কি কৈছিলো যে এই যে sex organs বিলাক enteridium হওক বা archegonium হওক, তাহাঁতে কি হয় gradual process of evolution of develop কৰে, and gradually during the process of evolution, once they try to reach or once they reach the advanced plants, these structures vanishes, right? একদম starting from algae আমি enteridium দেখিছিলো কিন্তু archegonium দেখা নাছিলো, if you remember. So bryophytes were called as the first archegonians because we see the presence of archegonia for the first time in this group, right? From bryophytes onwards, enteridium, archegonium present হয়ে আসিলে, but in the case of gymnosperms, enteridium কি হয় during the process of evolution কি নাইকিয়া হল, right? Hey karane, when we are talking about the higher class, that is the angiosperms. In case of angiosperms, no, we know about a flower. Flower to ki thake? Male reproductive system thake, female reproductive system thake. We have the stamen, we have the carpel. But kotu amar enteridium or archegonium boli word mention na thake. So what does that indicate? So during the course of evolution, enteridium or archegonium, that sex organ or his structure to gradually naikia hoi gol. Right? So gymnosperms of kinite, enteridium night. Now, if the question is asked, what is the last group of plants to have enteridium?
Pteridophytes.
Pteridophytes.
It is pteridophytes. Very good. So what is the last group of plants having enteridium? It is pteridophytes. And if I ask you, what is the last group of plants having archegonia?
Angiosperms.
Angiosperms of archegonia na thake.
Gymnosperms.
Gymnosperms.
It will be gymnosperms. Is the point clear? Do it clear? This is the way you will read. It's all the points dia ase, right? So from this chart, what is clear? In case of gymnosperms, enteridium bula sex organ to ami dekha na pao, kintu archegonium ami dekha pao, right? And inside the archegonium ki dekha pao? Egg. And once we have the male gamete, we have the female gamete. What they will do? They will fertilize or they will fuse. Ultimately, N into N will form zygote. Zygote ki form korba embryo. Embryo ki form korba the new plant or the sporophyte. Is the chart clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, ekhinloke porilo. Next, go to the next page. In gymnosperms, the points are also important. In gymnosperms, the gametophyte is fully dependent on the sporophyte. Gametophyte, sporophyte. And whenever we talk about gametophyte and sporophyte, we have to talk about their relation. Starting from bryophytes. Bryophytes or plant body ki asile? Gametophyte. Tahate ki develop korisile? Sporophyte. Sporophyte was dependent, nay independent. In case of bryophytes, it was completely dependent or partially dependent. So we use the word dependent. Next group, pteridophytes. Pteridophytes are plant body ki? Sporophyte. What they produce? Gametophyte. Gametophyte was dependent on the sporophyte, nay totally independent. It was totally independent. Karon gametophyte to kot produce korisile? Matit produce korisile. Now we come to gymnosperms. In case of gymnosperms, we have seen the presence of both male gametophyte and female gametophyte. এই যে gametophyte দুটাৰ কথা কৈছো, ক'ত ফৰ্ম কৰিছে? pollen grain to ক'ত ফৰ্ম কৰিছে? Endosperm to ক'ত ফৰ্ম কৰিছে? On the plant body itself. And what is the plant body called as? Nothing but the sporophyte. So we have to understand that in case of gymnosperms, the gametophyte is totally dependent on the sporophyte. Is the line understood?
Yes, ma'am.
So, kiba doubts thakile please ask. Clear, no? Ako koiso comparative study koriba. Bryophytes or sporophyte gametophyte relation ki asile? Pteridophytes or sporophyte gametophyte relation ki gymnosperms to likhiye disu. Right? Okay. Next point. The male gametophyte is reduced and it is representated by pollen grains. Etu pra question ahe. Reduced male gametophyte is a characteristic of which group of plants? Reduced male gametophyte is a characteristic of gymnosperms and also angiosperms. Reduced kya hote? Karon that pollen grain is a very minute structure. It is a small structure, right? And it stays for a very less time. Right? So it can reduce. So reduced gametophyte ko dekha pa gymnosperms or angiosperms. The female gametophyte, it is also called an endosperm. We have already written. Endosperm is different from the endosperm of angiosperms. We have already discussed this plan. Eta thrice eta N, eta before fertilization, one is formed after fertilization. So ploidy of the endosperm in gymnosperms and ploidy of the endosperms in angiosperms, thrice N, very important. Next, in gymnosperms, the egg is formed inside the Archegonia. This is something that you know, egg to pot form korise. Female sex organ or bhitor, female sex organ to ki boli koise Archegonia. Archegonia to kot ase endosperm. Now the point is, in case of gymnosperms, ami eta condition dekha pao that is called as polyembryony. Right? So swap. Yate jetia ami female gamete to dekhisu no? Male gamete asile, female gamete ase, duitai fuse kori pelai ki form koribo? Zygote, right? Zygote to form ki koribo? Embryo. Embryo actually ki form koribo? The plant body or the sporophyte. So ekhini bostu ami buji pao. Etu hol male or etu hol female. Female is also called as egg, right? In this process, enekwa jodi fertilization hoy, tetiale embryo keta form korise? Eta. Normally, sexual reproduction we speak about, we know the zygote will form the embryo and one zygote will obviously form one embryo, right? But in certain groups of plants, inside the seed, there is a presence of many embryos. Matra eta embryo, kintu bahut jodi embryo present hoy, tetiale tak ami eta term use koro that is called as polyembryony. The question that is asked is, what is polyembryony? Presence of more than one embryo is called as polyembryony. Second question, where can you see this feature? Polyembryony is seen in certain gymnosperms and certain angiosperms also. Right? So gymnosperms are eta seedor bhitorot jodi bahut kita embryo form koribo lage tetiale ki condition hobo lagibo? Eta embryo form koribo lagile ki hobo lagibo? Eta zygote thakibo lagibo. Bahut kita embryo form koribo lagile ki hobo lagibo? Bahut zygote thakibo lagibo. Is the point clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Next, বহুত zygote কেতিয়া form কৰিব? There should be certain conditions, right? এটা যদি জাইগোট ফৰ্ম কৰে এটা এমব্ৰায় ফৰ্ম কৰিব বহুত যদি জাইগোট ফৰ্ম কৰে তেতিয়াহলে বহুত এমব্ৰায় ফৰ্ম কৰিব now the question is বহুত জাইগোট ফৰ্ম কৰিবলৈও তো কন্ডিশন এটা লাগিব right and what is the condition it is given in this point in gymnosperms the egg is found inside the archegonia which is present in the endosperm or female gametophyte many archegonia are present in the endosperm so megaspore এটা স্পোৰ হি জাৰ্মিনেট কৰি পেলাই গ্ৰুপ অফ সেলস ফৰ্ম কৰিলে এই গ্ৰুপ অফ সেলস খিনিক আমি কি বুলি কৈছে এন্ডোস্পাৰ্মৰ ভিতৰত কি আছিল আৰ্কিগোনিয়া but we see the presence of if suppose this is the endosperm in case of gymnosperms so collection of cells তাতে কি দেখা পাও যে আৰ্কিগোনিয়া বহুত কিটা আছে আৰু গুটেই কিটা যদি আৰ্কিগোনিয়া বহুত যদি আৰ্কিগোনিয়া থাকে সবৰেটো এগ থাকিব ন inside the archegonia what do you see egg so if the female gametophyte have many archegonia inside the archegonia you see the egg each and every egg will get fertilized and will form zygote each and every zygote would form embryo as a result এই স্ট্রাকচারটোত আমি কি দেখা পাম মাল্টিপল এমব্রায়োস দেখা পাম না পাম here yes or no is the concept of polyembryony clear
Yes, ma'am.
what about rest of the students কি হল
Ma'am, can you explain it again?
you were sleeping or what my dear
No, ma'am.
at least you woke up what about the rest of the students বাকিবোৰ কি শুই গলো নেকি ক্লাছত
নাই মেম আছো
online class আছে মেমে তো দেখাই নাই how does it matter no even I have a daughter and I know how my daughter attends certain classes right so okay I know there are advantages of online and disadvantages of online classes but please pay attention right বুজিবতো লাগিবই question to আহিবই no don't sleep okay see what I am talking is a feature called as polyembryony polyembryony মানে কি presence of many embryo দেখা পাম gymnosperms দেখা পাম now the condition is due to which region or due to which reason do you see I'm sorry someone was asking me a question their mic to on ase okay so polyembryony মানে বহুত এমব্রায়োস থাকিব বহুত এমব্রায়োস কেতিয়া থাকিব যেতিয়া বহুত এগ থাকিব বহুত এগ কো থাকিব বা কেতিয়া থাকিব যেতিয়া বহুত আৰ্কিগোনিয়া থাকিব যদি ফিমেল গ্যামেটোফাইটত more than one archegonia থাকে তেতিয়া হলে that is the reason why more than one embryo develop and that feature is called as polyembryony clear
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
okay so please underline that word polyembryony important next we have fertilization in gymnosperms in case of gymnosperms we see two types of fertilization what are the two types judeo-siphenogamy and siphenogamy judeo-siphenogamy means what animal like characteristics jodi thake animal like fertilization jodi hoy that is called as judeo-siphenogamy judeo means animal like siphenogamy kyo karone use korise because it looks like a siphon or tube like structure that is why it's called as judeo-siphenogamy during the process so judeo-siphenogamy by animal like fertilization precisely what we understand we mean a condition where the male gametes are motile in higher plants the male gamete is non-motile male gamete kot thakibo pollen grain to bhitor thakibo so male gamete to motile hobo ne non-motile hobo angiosperms je ami pollen grain dekha pao no pollen grains bilak ki hoy from one flower to the other flower it gets pollinated and then fertilization takes place so pollen grain to bhitor he male gamete to ase male gamete to motile na non-motile Non-motile. So non-motile male gamete is a characteristic of higher plants. In case of gymnosperms also, maximum gymnosperms বা higher gymnosperms বিলাকৰ কি থাকে non-motile male gametes থাকে কিন্তু lower gymnospermৰ কি থাকিব motile male gametes, and if they have motile male gametes, the type of fertilization would be called as judeo-siphenogamy. So what is an example of a lower gymnosperm? It is cycles. Cover mic to on হৈ আছে and someone is talking in the background, it's disturbing the class. Please, I will request her to mute. কাৰ mic on হৈ আছে নো? Mic to কাৰ on হৈ আছে? Please mute yourself. Okay, অকমান class to disturb হৈছে. Anyway, so what I was saying was judeo-siphenogamy. What do you need to remember? The gymnosperms বুলি ক'লে divided into two groups, lower gymnosperms, higher gymnosperms. Lower gymnosperms, judeo-siphenogamy. কিহৰ কাৰণে? They have motile male gamete. One example of a lower gymnosperm, cycas. সদায় question আহে, cycasৰ male gametes motile নে non-motile? Cycasৰ male gametes, it is always motile. But if you are talking about pinus, pinus or male gamete, non-motile. Next, we have siphenogamy. Siphenogamy is a characteristic of higher gymnosperms, right? And siphenogamy কি হয় যে pollen grain টো থাকে, pollen grain ৰ পৰা pollen tube develop হয়, and this pollen tube is a structure through which the male gametes enters the female plant body. So this is about fertilization. After fertilization, কি form কৰে zygote. Zygote forms embryo. Embryo is formed from the development of zygote. Zygote or ploidy kiman twice end. Embryo ploidy kiman twice end. Like we have already discussed. After embryo formation, the ovule changes into seed. So this is a statement we talk about angiosperms also. Ovule seed form kore ovule after fertilization. Or after fertilization, ovary gets converted into a fruit in case of angiosperms. কিন্তু যেহেতু gymnosperms ovary to well developed নহয়, এখানে fruit formation আমি দেখা নাপাওঁ. Seeds are not found in pteridophytes as the germination of spores is exosporic. We have already discussed. ইয়াতে অকমান details দিয়া আছে about ovule. Gymnosperms or the ovule is a distinct structure and you have to know some points about it. First, what is the ovule? A megasporangium that is covered by integuments is called as the ovule. Integuments could be one, integuments could be two. After fertilization, a integuments bilake ki form kore. After fertilization, a integuments bilake seed coat form kore. Right? So if it has two integuments, then there would be two layers in the seed coat. If it has one integument, there would be just one layer of the seed coat. So after fertilization, integuments get converted into a seed coat and ovule gets converted into a seed. The ovule is a distinct structure in case of gymnosperms. It is called as megasporangium. Actually, line to clear nohoy. It is called as integumented megasporangium. You have to use that word. The largest ovule in the plant kingdom, cycas. Question I had to report. Majority of the ovules are orthotropous or straight ovule. It is important. So, as I said, ovule detailed description second year dia ase, first year man dia nai. Tothapiu, what you need to know is when we are talking about ovule, no, ovule to chenekwa dekha, just have an idea. Ovule is the structure we see in case of gymnosperms and also in case of angiosperms. So when we are talking about an ovule, normally the general diagram, এইটো মেগাস্পোৰেঞ্জিয়ামটো তাত কি থাকিব ইন্টিগুমেন্টস থাকিব right এখন ইন্টিগুমেন্টস থাকিব বা দুখন ইন্টিগুমেন্টস থাকিব so these two are called as integuments right এইটো হল তোমাৰ Megasporangium বা ovule গোটেই স্ট্রাকচারকে ovule বুলি কওঁ বা embryo sac বুলি ক'ব পাৰো right এই যোনডাল ষ্টক দেখিছা এটোক আমি কি বুলি কওঁ ফানিকেল এইবিলাক এতিয়া তোমালোকক নালাগে one thing to be noticed is if you are talking about this megasporangium এটা কি হয় covered হৈ থাকে on all the sides except one side this area where the integuments or the covering is absent is called as micropyle right এই wordটো জানিব লাগিব so embryo sac টো দুটা integument বা এখন integument এৰে cover কৰি থাকে গোটেইখিনি জেগাতে cover কৰি থাকে except এটা জেগা and this area where the integuments are absent is called the micropyle what is the function of the micropyle the function of the micropyle is this is the area through which the pollen tube will penetrate right কারণ micropyle এই বস্তুটোৰ ভিতৰত কি থাকিব cells থাকিব আৰু ইয়াতে কি থাকিব egg টো থাকিব এটা cell egg বাকিকিটা synergy আমি পিছত পঢ়িম আৰু ইয়াতো তিনটা বেলেগ বেলেগ cell থাকিব that is called as antipodal cells আমি পিছত পঢ়িম এই egg টো বা female gamete লগত male gamete টো fertilize কৰিব লাগিব so it is this area through which the pollen tube will enter this area is called as micropyle the stalk যিমান খাৰি থাকে তাক আমি কি বুলি কওঁ funicle এতিয়া depending on the orientation of the ovule to keneke ase position to keneke ase accordingly we have different types of ovules we have a ovule that is called as orthotropous anatropous hemitropous campylotropous succinotropous etc 6 different types of ovules are present right tar bhitor maximum discussion is between two orthotropous ovule and anatropous ovule eta ovule jeneke jedi eneke position of thake no micropyleৰ যোনটো exact opposite point এই পইণ্টক আমি কি বুলি কওঁ চেলাজা পিছত ডিসকাস কৰিম if the micropyle faces towards the upper portion তেতিয়া হলে এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ ovule আমি কি ovule বুলি কওঁ straight ovule or orthotropous ovule is the point clear different types of ovules are present what is the orthotropous ovule orthotropous ovule is also called as a straight ovule to ketia orthotropous বুলি কম when the micropyle looks toward the upper portion upor pine micropyle to jodi thake tetia hal tak ami orthotropous kom if we are talking about this condition etu eta embryo sac etu integuments aru ekon integument edal hol funicle egida ki hoy integuments right এই জায়গা কি নিজতে কি integuments present না হয় তাই আমি কি কম micropyle right এতিয়া এই diagram to আৰু এই diagram to compare কৰা in this diagram micropyle ক'ত আছে উপৰ সাইডে আছে চাই আছে এইটো সাইডে কি হৈছে it's looking down right যদি micropyle groundৰ পিনে ফেস কৰি আছে আমি কি বুলি কওঁ anatropous ovule যদি micropyle to faces towards the upper portion tak ami ki boli kom orthotropous so in case of gymnosperms ami 6 different types of ovules dekha pao in case of gymnosperms ami maximum commonly available is the orthotropous ovule that is also called as straight ovule angiosperms or most common type of ovule ki anatropous etia orthotropous word to buji palu ne nai what is orthotropous ovule
Yes, ma'am.
right so question pisot angiosperms pohile ako comparative questions ahibo orthotropous ovule is a characteristic of which group of plants anatropous ovule is commonly seen in which group of plants it's commonly seen in angiosperms orthotropous is a characteristic of gymnosperm second point in case of ovule unitegnic ovule is a characteristic of gymnosperms bitegnic ovule is a characteristic of angiosperms okay the next point talks about that The ovules are unitechnic in gymnosperms, that is one degree integument present or one integument present. এখন যদি আঁকা তেতিয়াহলে এইটো জিমনোস্পাৰ্মছৰ হৈ যাব, যদি দুখন আঁকা it will be of angiosperms.
Ma'am,
Next.
ma'am, unit technique-ৰ তলত কি লিখা আছে PDF-ত ভালকে visible নহয়।
Unitechnic লিখা আছে one integument present.
Okay.
Okay. The integuments never cover the entire portion. We have already talked about the micropyle. Next, chart খন দিয়া আছে। এতিয়া অগজনটো chart দিয়া আছে ন, the chart tells us যে ovule টো কোনে ফৰ্ম কৰিছে। আমি এনেকুৱা এটা স্ট্ৰাকচাৰ পঢ়ি আছো মাইক্ৰোস্পোৰেঞ্জিয়াম, তাত যদি integuments থাকে গোটেই স্ট্ৰাকচাৰটোক আমি কি বুলি কম, ovule বুলি কম। Now the next point is who forms the ovule, right? So this chart tells us about that. The main body of the ovule is made up of diploid tissues called as nucellus. আকৌ এইবিলাক portion জানিবলৈ হলে আমি সেই ovule structure-টো ভালকে পঢ়ি লব লাগিব, যোনটো নেকি তোমালোকৰ second year-ত আছে। First year-ত এইবিলাক portion দিয়াই নাই। এতিয়া তোমালোকক দি দিছে। Confusion? Okay, Swa. Just to have an idea what is nucellus. Right? So Megasporangium. Megasporangium-ত কি থাকিব? Covering থাকিব। আৰু covering খনক এই গোটেই structure-টোক আমি ovule বুলি কম। এই Megasporangium-এ কি ফৰ্ম কৰিব? Megaspores ফৰ্ম কৰিব ন? So এই যে round structure-টো দেখা পাইছা, ইয়াতে কি আছে? Nothing but cells. প্ৰথমতে right, একদম যেতে initial formation আছিলে integument আছে megasporangium আছে। megasporangium-ৰ ভিতৰত গোটেই cells বিলাক, এই megasporangium-ৰ cells বিলাক, এই যে যিমানবোৰ cells বিলাক তাক আমি কি বুলি কওঁ? Nucellus, right? এই nucellus বিলাকৰ পৰা, এই cells বিলাকৰ পৰাই এটা cell out of all these cells, no? এটা cell ডাঙৰ হৈ পেলাই what they will form? Ultimately they will form the main ovule. বাকি বিলাক cells যিমানবোৰ cells আছিলে ন, এই cells বিলাকে যোনটো ডাঙৰ বা dominant cell আছে, এই cellটোক nutrients দি ৰাখিব। So nucellus-ৰ function কি? To provide nourishment to the developing ovule. Is the point clear? So ovule to কোনে form কৰে? Ovule to বা main structure to কোনে form কৰে? Cell of the nucellus. আৰু nucellus-ৰ ploidy কিমান? Twice n. Right? So ultimately ইয়াৰ পৰা কি form কৰিব? Megaspore. এটা megaspore form কৰিব। Right? Nucellus-ৰ যিমানবোৰ cells আছে, এটা cell ডাঙৰ হ'ব, তাত divide কৰিব megaspore mother cell, megaspore mother cell, megaspore form কৰিব, ultimately megaspore টো embryo-লে convert হ'ব। তুমি তলত দিয়া chart খন চোৱা। The main body of the ovule is made up of diploid tissues called as nucellus. Nucellus কি হয়? Nutritive tissue. Nutrition দিয়ে developing embryo sac to nutrition দিয়ে। Inside the integuments, you have nutritive tissues. That nutritive tissue is called as nucellus. Nucellus act as, বা nucellus-ৰ যিমানবোৰ cells আছে, it act as megaspore mother cell. Megaspore mother cell-এ undergo meiosis and produces megaspores. আৰু যেতিয়া এটা cell undergoes meiosis, how many cells would be produced? 4 cells would be produced. So এটা megaspore mother cell কেইটা megaspore form কৰিব? 4টা megaspore form কৰিব। Out of these 4 megaspores, 3 megaspores will break down, degenerate হৈ থাকিব। তো functional কেইটা থাকিলে? মাত্ৰ এটা megaspore functional থাকিলে। এইখিনিলৈকে বুজি পাইছা নাই চোৱা? Rest of the chart will discuss later. Just see. Megasporangium. Megasporangium-ৰ ভিতৰত কি form কৰিব? Megaspores form কৰিব, right? Megaspore to ultimately কোনে form কৰিলে? Nucellus-ৰ cells বিলাকে। Nucellus is a nutritive group of tissues. These tissues will act as spore mother cell, right? কি spore mother cell? Megaspore mother cell. Megaspore mother cell meiosis undergo কৰি পেলাই megaspore form কৰিব। এবাৰ meiosis হলে কেইটা megaspore form কৰিব? 4টা। Out of the 4 formed megaspores, 3 of them will get degenerated and only 1 will remain functional. যোনটো functional megaspore form কৰিলে megaspore ploidy কিমান megaspore mother cell underwent meiosis and produced megaspore megaspore mother cell of ploidy কিমান আছিলে twice n reduction division is nothing but meiosis reduced হৈ পেলাই যোনটো megaspore form কৰিব megaspore of ploidy কিমান হ'ব n this functional megaspore will form the female gametophyte chart খন চোৱাচোন chart খনত arrowhead ডাল properly দিয়া নাই left hand side of jot likha ase 4 megaspores 1 remain functional and 3 generate tar pisot ki likha ase 1 remain functional and 3 degenerate tar pora arrowhead dal ni pelai side but right hand side eneke logai dia বুজি পাইছা নে 4 megaspores 1 remain functional and 3 generate from there take the arrowheads and join it to functional megaspore in the chart that is given in your PDF. What's the point to clear hoise na nai?
Yes.
Okay. So functional megaspore will form megaspore ki form kore gametophyte form kore female gametophyte that is also called endosperm endosperm ki form koribo ba endosperm er bhitor ki thakibo archegonia form koribo archegonia bhitor ki thakibo egg thakibo egg ultimately ki form koribo after fermentation zygote form koribo that is given in the chart next certain points again please go to the next page pollen grains to the micropyle pollination hobo lagibo titehe fertilization hobo male gamete to core bhitorot ase pollen grains or bhitorot it has to be carried in most of the gymnosperms the pollen grain of pollination kenikwa hoy eta agent or through and what is the agent air pollination is also called as anemophily so question ahe gymnosperms ot kenikwa dhoronor pollination hoy anemophilous type of pollination what is anemophilous pollination due to air or by air is called as air by wind jikwa it is called as anemophilous next a point about archegonia in gymnosperms the entridia was completely absent archegonia was present gradually ki hoye ase during the process of evolution structure to naikia hoi goi ase prothomote jetia ami bryophytes of archegonia we have talked about we have said the neck is a elongated structure pteridophytes of ki kolu the neck is made up of one cell gymnosperms of ki ase neck canal cells are absent buji paisa bostu kini bryophytes of neck canal cells many right pteridophytes of neck canal cell one gymnosperms of neck canal cell absent totally neck to nai so what is left behind is just a venter portion venter so enuka diagram asile no so in case of gymnosperms neck absent this a part ki boli koisilu venter of duta cell asile eta hol normal ventral canal cell aru eta hol egg in this case in gymnosperms neck to nai ventral canal cell to it is short lived or it is ephemeral okkoman kedin manor karone thaki pelai kiu naikya hoi jay so ultimately in case of gymnosperms gute archegonia is made up of just the egg is the point clear
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
okay next point about the male gametophyte of the pollen to germinate kori pelai pollen tube form koribo pollen tube or bhitorot ba pollen tube bhitor duta male gamete thakibo out of the two male gametes so gymnosperms angiosperms we have to make a comparison again pollen grains present in both inside the pollen grain male gametes are present how many male gametes two male gametes gymnosperms to duta ase angiosperms to duta ase but in angiosperms both the two male gametes are functional in gymnosperms only one male gamete is functional here next another point about Okay. Okay, the previous point was about pollen grain. Pollen grain present in present in gymnosperms and angiosperms, right? Gymnosperm ইহতৰো pollen grain থাকিব ইহতৰো pollen grain থাকিব pollen grainত কি থাকিব দুটা male gametes থাকিব in case of angiosperms also দুটা male gametes থাকিব out of the two male gametes only one is functional in case of gymnosperms in case of angiosperms both the male gametes are functional clear
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
okay next male gametes are at a point ki the lower gymnosperms of male gametes bila next point is about polyembryony we have already discussed come to the next page please turn the page that points bilak dia ase very important pteridophytes ki last group having antheridium gymnosperms ki hoy last group having archegonia during evolution sporophyte became more distinct and well developed যেতিয়া তুমি evolutionৰ কথা কৈ আছা starting from algae onwards no sporophyte to বেছি distinct ক'ত হৈছে সবতছে distinct ক'ত হৈছে in case of higher plants that is gymnosperms and angiosperms so sporophyte got more distinct during the process of evolution gametophyte very reduced gametophyte ক'ত দেখা পাবা very reduced বুলি ক'লে we talk about pollen grains very reduced gametophyte in case of angiosperms well developed gametophyte ক'ত দেখা পাবা in case of bryophytes তেনেকে sporophyte very reduced sporophyte in case of thallophytes well developed sporophyte in case of angiosperms so egita point we have to talk egita point clear hoise ne nai so gametophyte sporophyte these are the two words we always discuss during plant kingdom so starting from algae onwards this is the word ami use kori ahisu right so gametophyte to sobotse bhalke kod dekha paisile ekdom birat dangor structure biophytes ot dekha paisile right baki plants bilakot ki asile sporophyte asile algae to bad dia that is a thallophyte right so sobotse bhalke plant body ta ami kod dekha pa angiosperms so sporophyte is well developed in case of angiosperms gametophyte is well developed in case of bryophytes clear
Yes, ma'am.
okay next the last part of the pdf is classification of gymnosperms gymnosperms bilakok duta bhagot bhag kora hoise eta hol the lower gymnosperms aru eta hol higher gymnosperms lower gymnosperms is called as Gametophyta aru higher gymnosperms is called as Coniferophyta lower higher lower to ki boli koise Gametophyta aru higher group to ki boli koise Coniferophyta right within these two groups there are some classes Gametophyta tolot tinta class ase Gametophylicals Gametitals আৰু Cycadels ঠিক তেনেকে Coniferophyta তলতো গ্ৰুপস আছে Ginkgowels Chordatels Coniferals আৰু Nettles right so gymnosperms lower group higher group or Gametophyta Coniferophyta before going into classification one line that you need to remember gymnosperms they are the considered as the smallest group of plants right so smallest group kyo we consider korise maximum of the plants belonging to these classes has become extinct right kisumaner gutei class ke extinct hoy goise etia aru dekha na pao so as a result etia it is a very small group of plants that exist in this world right? So talking about the first group, that is Archegonia, right? Archegonia bilakor, so আমি কি কৈছিলো plant kingdom angiosperm starting from algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms. So gymnosperms or কি discuss কৰিছো lower আৰু higher. The point to be remembered is when we are talking about the lower group of gymnosperms, they will have similarity with the higher group of pteridophytes. Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So higher group of pteridophytes for eta example ki asile?
Ferns.
Ferns. So lower group for eta example jikunu বা lower group of plants bilakor kenuka dhoroner characteristic thakibo, fern like characteristic thakibo. Clear? And when we talk about fern-like characters, we have already discussed in pteridophytes that are coiling young leaves bilakor, tamane circinate vernation thakibo. So in case of cycles, you see circinate vernation. Ramenta by hair-like structure is a characteristic of ferns. So in this plants also, you will see the presence of ramenta. Second, third, the stem of the rhizome. So in this case also, you will see that. Right, so abelard points, they will have fern-like characters. Another important point is talking about the male gametes. In case of ferns, the male gametes were motile. So in this case also, the male gametes would be motile. We already পঢ়ি আহিছো gymnosperms bilakor lower gymnosperms or male gametes bilak motile, higher gymnosperms or male gametes bilak non-motile. Clear? So presence of ramenta, presence of motile male gametes, etc., very important. First is psychedophilicals. Psychedophilicals are completely extinct group, so you don't have to study anything about it. Lepidopteris is a fossil plant. Benititles, eto completely extinct. Benititles completely extinct, right? Benititles or at an example we have a Williamsonia, right? Williamsonia ki hoy, it is an example of a fossil gymnosperm and it was discovered by Professor Birbal Sahani. Ei namtu lagibo, right? Professor Birbal Sahani Institute of Paleobotany is located in or is found in Lucknow. It will put question ahe. Paleobotanical study put kore out of the options that would be given. So Birbal Sahani Institute of Paleobotany. Next, lower gymnosperms or এই তিনটা ক্লাসৰ ভিতৰত এই দুটাটো extinct হৈ গল. What is presently available is the group of the cycadels. Our cycadels are at a best example কি cycas. যেহেতু gymnosperms আমি দুটাই example বেছি ভালকে পঢ়ো, এটা cycas এটা pinus. Pinus is an example of higher gymnosperm. Cycas is an example of a lower gymnosperm. সেইকাৰণে question to বিৰাট আহে cycas or male gametes or question. In cycas, the male gametes are right. Cycadels, presently living Cycadophyta. All the plants of this order are living fossils. Living fossils we have already discussed. Agoteo paisile, ajiu pai. So that is what is called as a living fossil. Duta example, one is Jamia and the other is Cycas. Jamia example is also important because it is considered as a smallest gymnosperm. Question ahibo pore. Our Cycas, jungita point dia ase. Cycas is also called as sagopalm, S-A-G-O, sagopalm, right? Sago is obtained from its stem. Its male cone, ovule, male gamete, egg, everything is largest in the plant kingdom. So question jodi ahe, largest egg in the plant kingdom kar ase? Cycasor. Largest ovule in the plant kingdom kar ase? Cycasor. So this is the point that is important. Right, largest male cone in the plant kingdom. Okay, it is called as sagupalm. Sagu janune? Do you know that substance that we eat? Sagu dekhisan nai?
Yes, ma'am.
Puja suja hole mane sagu khai, right? We are talking about that one. It is obtained from the plant, that is Cycas. Phloem saprophyte. Gametes and egg are the largest in the plant kingdom. Male gametes are motile and are top shaped, right? So motile word to monot rakhiba. Female cone is absent in Cycas. Very, very important. Gymnosperms, Cycles বুলি ক'লে fern like characters. Second point, male gamete motile. Third point, only male cone is present, female cone absent. Fourth point, male cone is the largest in the plant kingdom. Next, we come to this group, that is Coniferophyta. Coniferophyta গোটেইকেইটাৰে অকণ point পঢ়িব লাগিব. The first one is Jingoels. Jingoels side লিখা আছে ন diagram NCERT. Please look into the diagram. তাৰ পৰা question আহিছে, identify the diagram বুলি আহে. It is the oldest group of Coniferophyta. Most of the plants are extinct. Adult plant আছে, that is called as Jingo biloba. Why is it called as biloba? Because the leaves looks like lobes. এনেকৈ দুটা লোব থাকে, সেইকাৰণে তাক কি বুলি কয় biloba বুলি কয়. It is a living fossil, also called as maiden hair tree. এইটো বহুত question আহে. It belongs to higher gymnosperms, but its male gametes are motile. মই ইমান দেৰি কি কৈ আছিলো যে lower gymnosperms অতহে male gametes motile থাকে, higher gymnosperms অত male gametes motile নাথাকে, but everything has an exception. Question to কেনেকে আহিব? Give an example of a higher gymnosperm that has motile male gametes. তেতিয়াহলে আমি কি লিখিব লাগিব? Jingoels. Right? Next we have chordateles. Chordateles are কি হল? Completely extinct. Next we have coniferals. Coniferals কি হয় that this is the largest group of plants within the gymnosperms. Out of যিমান কেইটা class দেখিছা, maximum plants that we see today belongs to this group, that is coniferals. Largest group of gymnosperms, conifers are included. Examples of conifers, বহুত কেইটা example দিয়া আছে, গোটেই কেইটা example চাব লাগিব. First example is pine or pinus. Pinus or কি question আহে? Important points বিলাক কৈ গৈ আছে, কিন্তু তোমালোকে নিজে কৰিবা. Turpentine, right? Turpentine is a oil. Turpentine is extracted from pine, right? Next, Silgosa pine. What is Silgosa pine? But Silgosa pine or scientific name ki? Ito upor to question hai. Pinus giardiana. Silgosa pine. Charpine. Pinus roxburghi. Charpine or iman question aha nahi. Silgosa pine or bahut question ahi se. Another example of a coniferal, Cedrus. Cedrus is also known as deodar. Another example of coniferals, Taxus. Taxus is known as yew tree. Yew tree upor question ahi se. An anti-cancer medicine that is Taxol is obtained from this plant. Yar upor question today. Next we have Taxosa mexicana. Stem is thickest in the plant kingdom. One question aha nahi. Abies balsama. Yar upor question ahi se. Canada balsam is obtained from this plant, right? It is used in the manufacturing of permanent slides in biological labs. So Canada balsam obtained from which plant will hai? Next we have juniperus. Juniperus or question ahi se. Cedar wood oil is obtained from juniperus. Junita word so this oil is used as a cleansing fluid in the laboratories, right? It is also used to increase the resolution of the microscope. So oil oil to use for economic importance ke liye diya ase. Next example of coniferous, Araucaria species. Araucaria jimanbul species ase, these are ornamental. Ami jintu Christmas tree dekho, that is also Araucaria, right? Araucaria excelsa. Another yeah.
Ma'am, apni naam zishni ko aise mein ishni nai PDF to. Ma'am,
Ma'am, yes.
someone look aise ma'am.
These Abies balsam last example.
Balsama.
Look aise.
তাৰ পিছত দিয়া নাই.
No, ma'am.
PDF অকল লিখি নি আছে. Okay, doesn't matter. Just listen. কাৰণ আজি তো PDF টো পাই যাবা, মই এই দুটা পেজ এতিয়া after class মই তোমাক send কৰি দিম. Okay? So এইখিনি পইণ্টত কি important? Abies balsama পিছত এটা example আছে juniperus বুলি. Juniperus ৰ পৰা এটা oil extract কৰে, that is called as cedar wood oil. Very important for laboratory point of view. So cleansing fluid হিচাপে ইউজ কৰে, স্লাইড বিলাক যেতিয়া চাফা কৰিব লাগে অইল টোৰে চাফা কৰে, প্লাস মাইক্ৰোস্কোপৰ যেতিয়া ৰেজুলেশন বঢ়াব লাগে এই অইল টোৰে ইউজ কৰে. So ইয়াতে যিবিলাক examples পাবা next আজি যোনটা page পঠা তাতে information about coniferous থাকিব আৰু details থাকিব ভালকে পঢ়িবা বস্তুকিটা so examples খিনি ভালকে চাবা আৰু এটা example আছে Sequoia Sequoia is very important কারণ কি হয় it is also called as redwood tree or the Sherman tree right it is the tallest gymnosperm question ahe smallest gymnosperm ki or tallest gymnosperm ki tallest gymnosperm Sequoia smallest gymnosperm Gygnum all of agote poisu next a group to important it's very important Metamorph point it is called as the most advanced gymnosperms a point to ami buji paisu members of this group have vessels when we talk about vessels gymnosperms are present ne absent vessels are absent in gymnosperms except in metam so metamor ketaman point important sama ha just explanation point to more kori lo details or ki likha ase most advanced gymnosperm ha second point ki likha ase vessels present rest of the gymnosperms vessels absent vessels are present metam but details are present third very important gymnosperms of Archegonia present and absent normal gymnosperms or rest of the gymnosperms of Archegonia present only in this class Archegonia is absent so question hai Archegonia is absent in Metels ki hoy one class of gymnosperm right example of Metels etu to class hoy no class for kisman example thakibo example of Metels ki metam second ki ephedra third hole welwitschia right so this is the class a class to tinta dhoroner members ase metam ase ephedra ase welwitschia ase welwitschia ki hoy fossil gymno right jetia ami etu class or kotha we remember this 3 points most advanced group of gymnosperms in this class vessels are present in this class Archegonia is absent kintu tatu kisuman exception ase exception ki that we have to talk about ephedra ki for example Metels for example but বুজি পাইছা নে বস্তুটো Metels group of Archegonia nathake and this is the most advanced group right আর যেহেতু আমি already এই point to পঢ়িছো no gymnosperms er bisot ki thakibo gymnosperms or lower gymnosperms higher gymnosperms angiosperms or thik teneke lower aru higher thakibo higher gymnosperms er eta example ki discuss koriso Metels so এই Metels বা এই group to logot kisuman characteristics similar thakibo angiosperms or jehetu Archegonia nathake so tenekwa characteristic to ami Metels dekha paisu that is an example of higher gymnosperm so in this group Archegonia nathake with one exception ephedra is an example of a Metel or ephedra belong to this class called as Metels but Archegonia is present so question ahe ephedra Archegonia present ne absent ephedra sabole gole Archegonia ki hobo absent hobo lagisile karon it is an example of a higher gymnosperm but in spite of that Archegonia is present Next, ephedra question ahe je India ephedra code besike pai, Rajasthanot pai. Next, aru eta question ahe je ephedra pra eta medicine obtain hoy, that is called ephedrine, right? It is used as a drug by the athletes, right? Athletes bilake ei dope test bilak je kore no, ephedrine khai, one of the thing that they use, right? So he page PDF dia nasile sake most probably. So this was the last page. Aji discussion amar ekin locate home. So etia sohon kiba problem paisa niki. Aji ki discuss korilu? We have talked about the plant body more details of heterosporous condition, right? Sporophyte to kenekwa microspores, megaspores, right? Ekini kolu important point ki korilu? That vessels present absent, gymnosperms of vessels absent except certain exceptions. Next আমি কি করব heterosporous condition দুটা spores form. Next gymnosperms maximum কি হয় dioecious হয়. Pinus is an example of monoecious. Dioecious যদি হয় male plant female plant বেলেগ থাকিব. Male plant ত আমি male cone দেখা পাম, female plant ত আমি female cone দেখা পাম, right? In that cone what you will see microspores, in a female cone what you will see megaspores. Microspores would form the male gametophyte aru eta naam ase that is called as pollen grain. Megaspores will form the female gametophyte is also called as endosperm. Dutare naam ase, right? Inside the pollen grain what you will see male gametes, eta male gametes duta, out of the two only one remains functional. Inside the female gametophyte what you will see the presence of many Archegonia. Jihetu bahut Archegonia ase, bahut egg ase tar bhitor, each Archegonia will have one egg. Ultimately gute gita egg jodi fertilize hoy bahut embryo form koribo, and so in gymnosperms we see the condition that is called as polyembryony, right? Next, ultimately we are talking about the classification. Lower group, higher group, maximum of the members have become extinct, right? Junbilak living ase, we have given the example. Out of all the examples, Cycas, Pinus, detailed structure to amak lagibo. In the next class also we are going to talk about Cycas and Pinus in details, right? At a comparative study kori. Aru aji jikin loke pohilo, junbilak examples dia ase, especially in the group called as coniferous. Tar example khini sam. Aru very very important is this group, that is the highest group, that is Metam. Metam of the question iman kiho karone ahe karon tar exceptions ase, aru major exception ba exceptional points ko dekha ephedra. So a portion to halke poriba aru details or egita portion. Next, gymnosperms lower aru higher. Lower gymnosperms bilakor kenuka dhoroner characteristics thakibo, fern like characteristics thakibo. And what is fern like characteristics we have already discussed. Second point, motile male gamete is a characteristic of lower gymnosperm. One example, Cycas, right? And even in case of Metam also, I mean, in case of Jingo also, we have seen motile male gamete. Our Jingo biloba ki purima, the diagram, and Jingo biloba is an example of a question ahe, identify or give an example of a living fossil. Living fossil hisabe Jingo biloba, you can put a name in the form of or in the group of gymnosperms, right? So ekin loke asile PDF kon just go through, see if you have any problem.
Birbal Sahani je kiba ta institute asile apni ki koisile institute?
Birbal Sahani Institute of Paleontology ne paleobotany, proper naam to sabo debo.
Yes ma'am.
Just go through the PDF.
Ma'am, ephedra to ma'am shrub mane hai to tallest shrub mane any example of shrub hai?
Any example of a shrub.
Okay ma'am, thank you ma'am.
Ephedra points তোমালোকে তো পোৱা নাই PDF খন, so যোনটো পেজত ephedra points খিনি আছে, ephedra points খিনি important বুলি লিখি দব, ভালকে পঢ়িবা. Just go through the PDF. If there is doubts, ask. do you have doubts or it's clear? Are you all going through the PDF?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just go. Do you want some more time or is it over?
Ma'am, it is clear.
Clear? Okay then, I think that's all for today. Next, we'll be talking about cycles and finals. Our open information this is something that we are going to do in the next class. Okay? Karu doubts now,
Yes,
no?
ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.